Great. So we'll get started here. I want to thank everybody that has already joined for coming in and spending some time and learn about Ixcela and talk with Wayne and Erika. Couple of housekeeping notes on the bottom for those that are joining, and I'll say it again as we go through it. There's a Q&A icon, and if you want to ask a question, just fill that out and we will address it. We'll save time at the end to answer the questions. And this will be a really exciting hour. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Brian Smith, one of the co-founders of RedCrow. We're a direct online investing platform focused on healthcare and companies making a social impact. RedCrow is creating a community of healthcare experts, people that are interested in healthcare, work in healthcare, and really investors that are just interested in investing in things that are making the world a better place. And Ixcela is certainly one of those companies. So it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Erika Engel and Dr. Wayne Matson, both founders of Ixcela. This is a company that Jerry and I met Erika probably coming up on 2 years, Erika?
I think so.
Yeah, we were at a family office conference, and RedCrow was just getting ready, and we saw Erika present Ixcela, and not only were we both really interested in the company, but we just love the leadership team, and we thought it would be a great company to work with, especially for RedCrow being a newer company in the space. And so it's my pleasure to have you both today, and welcome to our webinar series.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Erika, I have some questions that I am going to start off with you. But you know, most teams that we meet when they start a company, and it's really interesting, and there's a couple people involved. There's usually a story behind how you know each other and why you decided to work together. So, I'll start with you, and maybe you can share, how you and Wayne met.
Sure. So I apologize in advance for everybody listening. I'm recovering from laryngitis, so I have a little bit of a Marge Simpson-esque voice. So I met Wayne at this point about 14 years ago, so by accident. In a past life, I was Miss Massachusetts in the Miss America program, and one of the tasks that I was sort of entrusted to do was to go and to do different luncheons and gatherings and events. And I had decided I was going to do an event at one of the local VA hospitals here in Bedford, where you spend some time just having lunch with patients and just talking to them and being friendly. And at the time, I had just graduated from MIT and was sort of deciding what I wanted to do with my life and career. And when I went into this luncheon, the head of research at the VA who was there said, "Erika, what are you going to do with your life?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure at this point. I'm thinking about med school or grad school or maybe both. And I'm just deciding as I spend this year doing this other kind of crazy thing." And he said, "Well, there's someone you absolutely have to meet." And this guy's name is Wayne Matson, and he recently sold his company. Since then, I think, ESA has been sold, resold, and now is owned by Thermo Fisher. But he said, this guy is amazing. He's brilliant. He's wonderful. He's kind. He, his uncle won the Nobel Prize. You have to meet him. And so I called Wayne up that night and I said, "Hi, I'm Erika, and I was introduced to you through Ben, and, tell me a little bit about what you do." And he, I think the most compelling thing that Wayne said on the phone that night when I asked him, what are his interests? What are his research interests? And he said, "I'm not interested in proving the 16th digit of pi. All of the things that I study, I want to be relevant to society, to the population. I want to do something that actually is impactful and will leave some sort of lasting footprint in helping people to live better lives." And so I was sold. At that point I was sort of in between. So I came and I started doing some lab work with Wayne while he was in transition between his former company and then some space that had been given to him at the VA hospital to continue doing research. And so I started there, and then Wayne ended up getting an appointment at BU medical school as a professor. And so I ended up going to graduate school at BU Med. And so the rest that's sort of the initial story, at least.
That's great. That's a great introduction. So Wayne, we're going to come back to you when we get into, how did you join Ixcela? But let's talk about Ixcela. Erika, can you talk a little bit about your motivation behind Ixcela and the real catalyst for you thinking about this business?
Sure. So I'll let Wayne talk a little bit about how we suckered him in.
Well, that was certainly the next question. So
to doing it, I think that we both share a passion for figuring out ways to improve personalized healthcare, for enabling people to live longer, better, healthier lives. And, in the early days when we had decided we were going to do this together, and then the question was, okay, we're going to start a company and there's a variety of different business models. Are we going to become sort of more of the fee-for-service, group that just analyzes samples, or do we want to do something that could really leave a lasting impact? And I know that, I suffer from a variety of gastrointestinal disorders. Wayne has this long history of working with a whole slew of different, whether it's research, academia, pharma, in the area of preventive and healthcare and lifestyle modifications. I mean, he'll go into it, but I think we both, ultimately, the reason we went down this path, one, the science led us there, and we can talk about that later, but two, we just have a passion for trying to figure out how to help people to live better, healthier lives.
That's great. That's great. And so Wayne, can you talk to us a little bit about how you got involved with the venture, and with all your experience, what got you excited to want to join Ixcela and be part of the team and go into this with Erika?
Well, some background. I've alternated off and on between academia and starting businesses. And I've found that academia is a wonderful place to study a problem. And once you know what the problem is, a lousy place to solve it. And small companies are better at solving things. And after selling ESA, which we had done some nice things, we did all the original work for pediatric lead poisoning there. If your kid gets his finger stuck before he goes into school, it's partly my fault. I went back into the academic world for a bit of time and wound up with some really nice graduate students. I guess it was around about, you finished up. She actually did a brilliant thesis, which I won't get into. Finished up and went off looking for this, that, and the other thing to do. And then she and her husband showed up at the house one evening, and we were sitting down chatting. And she said, how would you like to start a company? And my wife at one point had told me that she didn't want any new companies. And she looked at me and said, oh, go ahead. So we said, okay, that's fine. Let's start a company. Let's go and take this some odd 40 years of research that we've been doing in the small molecules that regulate processes and signaling in the body, and take a hard look at what all of the things are in it could mean, and go and do something about it. Because we've seen risk factors for things. We've seen situations where one insult will drive a person's health into a tailspin, and looked like it was a good idea to do something about it. So that's what we started out to do. And it's always nice to have a former grad student as a CEO, because I've always been able to say, yes, sir, man.
Payback.
Great.
Well, she offered me the same deal I gave her in grad school, so I couldn't refuse that.
That's a great story. So let's talk a little bit about the science and what sets Ixcela apart from some of the other companies, products that might be out there. We all know that internal fitness and gut health is such an amazingly hot topic right now. I have learned, and our team has learned so much just from working with Ixcela, that I'm so conscious of that, that what am I doing, based on some of the things we've talked about, to make sure, I'm not doing things that Ixcela is going to be disappointed in me with. So talk to me a little bit about, if you can, Erika, the science and really what approach Ixcela is taking that's different than what's out there, without giving too many of your trade secrets away.
Sure, and then I'll do the kind of the 20,000 foot view, and Wayne will fill in all of the details. So
I'll fall from 20,000 feet.
So when we started, like I said earlier, there was a question around what we were going to do and what the test was going to be. And so we had sifted through 40 years of Wayne's work, some 40,000 samples that Wayne has run across a variety of different studies, everything from the neurodegenerative disease family, so you're looking at Alzheimer's, ALS, Parkinson's, Huntington's, to diabetes, to heart disease, to emotional disturbances, whether it's schizophrenia or whether it's depression. And one thing that we started to see when we were looking across the metabolomics data is that there were a subset of the different metabolites that we were studying that very uniquely either defined the disease or defined different sort of progressive states of the disease, or were even risk factors for those diseases. And interestingly enough, a lot of the same markers kept coming up over and over and over again as being relevant. And when you write those down, you say, okay, well, what are these markers? And interestingly enough, they were gut microbiome related. So either directly secreted by certain bacteria in the gut, or were regulated in some way by the gut. And so, we said, oh, this is fascinating and interesting. And hence we became a gut microbiome company. So that's sort of step one that guided us to become, the gut people. Really briefly, and then Wayne, you could go into additional detail. Most gut microbiome tests today tend to be stool sample analysis tests. They're measuring something very different, and I think, Wayne, I'll let you answer that side of the question. But people say, well, how do you measure the gut microbiome? By looking at blood. And it's that there's, you're not just measuring, when you take a stool sample, you're basically measuring the types of bacteria, maybe how many lactobacillus or bifidobacillus, whatever happens to be living in your large intestine. And note, it's not complete, because not everything actually comes out in the stool sample. It's not supposed to. But more importantly, you actually care about the output of that bacteria. Whether or not you have 6 or 7 billion lactobacillus, is one thing, but are they functioning properly in your body? Is the right thing happening biochemically that is keeping you healthy? So, I'd say the science drove us to become the gut microbiome company. These molecules were vetted over and throughout Wayne's career. And then we are different from the other products because we are a blood test instead of a stool sample analysis test. And, ultimately you're measuring something very different that is actionable and, relevant biochemically. Do you want to add something?
You covered it pretty well. I think another way of looking at it is in the microbiome, you have some 6,000, maybe more species that are in essentially a Darwinian competition with each other. And if we see a significant abnormality, for instance, let's say that somebody is very low in a particular indole, which is a good antioxidant, and when it's low is a risk factor for type 2 diabetes, that means that the species that's producing that is losing the battle against everybody else. So what you try to do is to figure out, what does that particular species want? That's the good guy. How do you help the good guy? That's what my granddaughter says. She says, you're helping the good guys beat the bad guys. Very simplistic, a lot easier than what we said. You find out what does it need in its pathways to give it a competitive advantage. And that's one of the things we've done with extensive reading in the literature on diet, exercise, some of our own internal work with animal models, that you try to optimize the functionality of the microbiome for that individual. Because we were able to show, for instance, in gene-modified mice, that the microbiome is a function of the genetics of an individual. We could completely separate wild-type mice from their gene-modified litter mates by looking at the small molecules in the feces. And that's the footprint of the microbiome. We're looking at, what species are there, and you figure it's all the same species when they're 10 days old and they've been living in the same cage from the same mother. But those species are working differently because the genetics of the gut wall and other things are different. So every individual has a certain specificity of their microbiome. And it can be significantly altered by things like taking antibiotics, eating at McDonald's exclusively. And some people can get away with that because of their genetics. Other people can't. And you want to be able to find that not in what's in the gut, but in how it's operating for you, which is basically what Erika was saying. And one way of doing that is to look at a portion of the metabolome in the plasma, which incorporates, it's a very small portion of the total metabolome, but the 12 markers that we measure are indicative of multiple different processes that are related to the functionality of the gut, and then secondarily relate to the functionality of the different organs in the body. And maybe I've gone on too long, but
I think this is great, Dr. Matson. I mean, that knowledge is
best it can be for being different.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I want to ask you a little bit about some of the milestones that Ixcela has accomplished, from partnerships to really just things you would say as a newer company. These are things that we're happy about. These are the things that we're as a team proud to talk about. But I also want to know clinically, the two of you, have you come across something that maybe it wasn't part of the original plan, but it's piqued your interest and you're finding out, some things from, whether it's the science or results from the test, that could potentially be a game changer in your model? And before you answer that, I just want to also let our viewers know that for those that joined late, there's a Q&A icon on the bottom that if you click it, you can ask a question. So, and I have Aishan here to help me manage that if I can't figure it out, but I can see that we have one already. So, but Erika and Wayne, I'd love to know about, the successes and what has transpired since your original thought process.
Maybe you can talk about some of the Duke data. Okay. So, obviously the first milestone was, founding the company, raising some money, having a, building the lab. So that was, we had to create a BL2 level lab here, and we have that. And so that was early on. That was sort of the first foray. The second was in creating the test. So scientifically, if you buy the product or if you use the product, you'll see it's very simple. You poke your finger with a lancet, you collect a little bit of the blood and you put it on a filter paper little collection device. And it's all super easy, except that it really wasn't that easy to make that work that way. And then to figure out how to make the sample be stable and the extraction and running the methodology. So I think that the entire process for, from when you bleed, you send us the kit, to when we process your sample was definitely sort of a huge sort of scientific, milestone. Quantification of the blood. We have a really neat technique where we actually take photographs of the sample and we pixel count to determine the volume of the blood that you've sent in. So there's that whole piece was, I think, a huge milestone. Then the next milestone was obviously with the creation of, the report, the website. And so there's a version 1.0 of that came out you know, last year, where we were saying, okay, if you take this test, we want to be able to provide actionable dietary lifestyle supplementation modifications that you can do at home to make these changes, and then to obviously see and feel you know, a difference and an impact. So we had to find a supplement company to partner with. One of the supplements is proprietary. Wayne can talk a little bit about that one. That was just the invention of it. The, you know, now with scaling and finding a production facility to make it in was its own sort of separate ongoing challenge, but we've made it quite far in. And then, you know, last year, early on, we started working in a sort of serendipitous encounter with America's Cup Team Oracle USA, which I don't know if folks are sailors out there, but it's sort of I call it the Super Bowl of sailing. You know, teams from all over the world come in and participate, and we were fortunate enough to pilot the program for 9 months with the team, with some pretty amazing results: improvement in performance, reduction of sickness, improvement of days gained for training and being on the water and in the gym. And so the team named us an official partner. Two of the folks that worked at the team nutritionist and team performance manager, actually after the campaign left, and now are working here to really build out the nutrition and fitness side. So the version 2.0 of the report now includes a fully customized nutrition and training fitness plan that you can do at home, and it's very, very well done. So, you know, the evolution of that, and then of course the data that came from Team Oracle, and then officially we launched last September. So that was a kind of a big deal. So I'm going to stop because I'm about to cough. And Wayne, sorry.
Come back.
You're a trooper, Erika. Thank you.
Those were milestones in the business plan. We had a few on the way to those milestones where we had, what do we look at, about 300-400 people, that family, friends, associates, people that had problems, that wanted to see what we could do. And we had a couple of really astounding successes in that, using some of the ratios in the profiles that we created to find a solution to a person's excessive anxiety, that worked out. Other people that we helped with various gut problems, some people with Lyme disease post that we were able to help feel a little bit better. But these were one-offs, and they were sort of milestones. What Erika described in the Oracle was a study that actually proved the point that you could design individual specific and group program based on the gut metabolites we measure that would improve performance and functionality. Other milestones for me going forward, we have been doing a lot of work with outside groups, for finishing up some things and then working forward on the data. We were able to work with Mayo on a study that we initiated, that we ran, I think, about 600 subjects from the Stardy Depression program. And they were able to use that information on some of the metabolites we gave them and some of the gut metabolites, gut-related metabolites, to define a genetic link to a genomic link to the metabolome, which allows them a much better specification of therapy in a certain subset of people. That was exciting to show that you had, in people, that you had a disease-related genomic link to the gut microbiome that would show up in the plasma that could then be used to find the genes. Scientifically exciting. The other thing that's been scientifically exciting is a follow-up on an initial study we did with Duke several years ago of the effect of mental stress on people with cardiac ischemia. Loss of ejection fraction is a function of a 45-minute mental stress test. And we had initially seen some evidence that there was a brain-gut interaction, which was variously responsible for those people that lost cardiac function as a result of mental stress. We've recently followed that up with another 600 some odd patients, and that seems to be holding. And that's very exciting because it offers the possibility of first having a test for people with cardiac ischemia that says that you are likely to be more susceptible to mental stress. And then down the road, perhaps having a way of modifying, either through diet, exercise, or supplementation, the profile of people with cardiac insufficiency that would be subjected to mental stress. It's one of those things that just sort of falls out of a data set without you really expecting it to, and they're always exciting.
I think just to wrap it up, right now this product, falls under the category of general health and wellness, and is meant to, it's population wide. There's every single person should take this test. Every single person would benefit from it. Yeah. When, as you start to data mine and you get a customer base of some, number of thousands, you can actually start to pull data, right? And say, well, interesting, this is a group that has heart disease. What do they look like? And can there be a sort of specific profile or plan that's created for those individuals? Or these are people who have depression, like, and self-report that. Is there additional data that can be pulled, or a program that can be custom tailored, to them? So that's over time. I think that is one direction where this could potentially go.
I think that's what people like to call big data. But once you have 10 or 20,000 subjects, you can begin to use modeling to put them into different categories and see what works for somebody that looks like this and what works for somebody that looks like that. And that's a very effective way of addressing what eventually could be a population-based thing. The other thing, I slipped my mind, but the other thing that was a bit of a milestone is that the results have come out, long-term studies in Sweden and Finland, one of which that shows that one of the biomarkers we're using, measuring routinely, and suspected was a variable in type 2 diabetes, indeed is a variable in type 2 diabetes. That's a Finnish study of some 3,000 people. The other deals with looking at uric acid, which says that elevated uric acid levels can be a risk factor for various and sundry kinds of cardiac and stroke-related incidents. So those are two of the gut-related metabolites that we measure that are well, IPA, the indole is strictly gut, but two of the gut-related metabolites that we measure that have been validated as being risk factors in kind of large studies that were ongoing for 4 or 5 years now. It could have come out the other way.
Yeah, right.
And not done by us, right? These are third party.
No, these are
These are other folks,
major
research
national
institutions.
studies, major studies in Sweden and Finland.
Mm-hmm.
It's great support. What's amazing about you, I mean, you look at all these chronic, diseases and conditions, and I think when I first met the two of you, we were talking, when it comes to anxiety and stress, I remember thinking, well, every startup CEO should be taking the test at that point, right? I mean,
they probably don't want to take it.
Yeah, exactly.
I definitely have low levels of IPA. I'm like the stereotypical person who.
We got them up.
Yeah. So the point is, you can, right? And I think that when we say it's actionable, we're not just measuring stuff for the sake of measuring stuff. Like, these are all things that you can actually change your diet and your lifestyle. You can actually take supplements that, that could fix it. And, why wouldn't you if you could do that early on?
Right. That's great.
One thing, thinking about chronic diseases, I think we think about disease in the wrong way as being symptoms. And disease is really when there's this complex web of interactions of which the microbiome is a part. And when that web is out of shape, bad things are slowly happening. And it's the aggregate insult from all of the things that happen when you have low this or high that, or these two things that aren't quite where they ought to be, that eventually gives you the symptoms that we call the disease. I expect that people that have depression or people that have schizophrenia have had the problem for a long time before the symptoms show up. And this is why we're trying to attack this whole problem of long-term chronic diseases from before they happen. We want to find the risk factors, find the optimization things, and make it not happen, which is better than trying to fix it after it does. It's easier to pull somebody off of a railroad track than to put them together after the train's hit them, right?
Right.
That's basically what we're trying to do.
No, that's right. So we have a couple of questions coming in, so I want to make sure we leave time for that. One of the things I do want to ask, though, is, when we talk about, especially on the RedCrow side, we like to work with companies that are making a social impact. So can you tell us about your vision and where Ixcela is headed, where you see Ixcela headed, and really what is your mission in creating Ixcela, and what do you hope the end result to be beyond a very successful acquisition or exit somewhere down the road? But tell us about what are you trying to really create?
So this is a very mission-oriented group. I think anytime you're talking about healthcare, education, or you have to be mission-oriented. In addition, obviously, we would love for all those other things, that you mentioned to happen, and so we're actively trying to get there. Ultimately, like I said before, it's a test that every single person should take. And it's interesting because, having done the work with the professional athletes, there is an argument that, professional athletes who are really interested in wanting to improve their game would be perfect candidates for the test. But, regular people who want to live better, healthier lives and know the types of foods and exercises and things that they should be doing would also be, we just got put under the light from the projector. It's okay. Thanks, Scott. Sorry about that. It's like very blue light in our face. So I think that it's been interesting for us because we've seen that there's all sorts of different applications for people taking this test. So when I say everyone should take it, I think there's motivations for physicians to get their patients to take the test, whether it is for the purpose of improving, custom improving their healthcare protocol, or if some of this data comes through with Duke or whatever, this could be a potential screening tool for other types of diseases. Athletes should do it because if they want to really up their game, this is a great way of upping their game. Regular people should do it because, we don't always know what to do. We don't know what to eat. We don't know what supplements to take. We don't know what exercises to do. And we could really be guided by the science rather than just guessing, like, should I take this? Should I take vitamin D? Should I take this? Should I take that? Who knows, right? So let the science tell you if you actually need it. So, I guess my vision is that this becomes something that, thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people do, that we improve people's lives, that we, ultimately over time generate the data to show that there's, a tangible impact on either the quality of life at the broadest, point, but also like potentially disease mitigation, minimization.
Well, yes. I've always been interested in keeping problems from happening. We used some technology I developed during my thesis work at MIT to start the first 30 cities program in childhood lead poisoning. And that was a crusade. And it has taken 45 years, but it's something which is under control in this country, where the levels have gone from 40 to 5 as being acceptable. and where we've gotten programs going in China and India and Russia, South America in some places. And that's the kind of thing that I'd like to do on a broader scale with what we're trying to do at Ixcela, is to make diseases not happen. Diseases that don't have to happen if you know why they could, if you know what the risks are, and you have some guidance in what to do. As far as that goes, when we started doing childhood lead poisoning, a blood lead test was costing $25. If you do it with the last handheld instrument that we developed before we sold the company, it costs $2. So technology is going to make some of these things drop in cost so that they are more applicable to the entire population. Right now, they're pretty much applicable to, I would say, 75, 80% of the population that is in that. It doesn't cost much more than going to dinner.
Right, right.
So that's, I'd like to see fewer cases of type 2 diabetes, fewer cases of mild cognitive impairment. And I'd like to see the latter before I forget what I'm working on. So
that's great. All the things you just pointed out, those are the very reasons we were attracted to Ixcela and having Ixcela on the RedCrow platform. It's definitely, making that social impact, making the world a better place. What's been pretty amazing for us on the RedCrow side is, as you know, we do a lot of outreach through social media and PR when companies come on our platform to attract funding. And what has been incredible to see with Ixcela posts is individuals tagging other individuals' names to make them aware of Ixcela and that it exists and that this is something you should look into. And so it's going well beyond, hey, I might make an investment in Ixcela, to maybe I'll make an investment, but I'm also going to share the test or the company with someone I know. And so one of the questions, we'll just kind of lead into that came up is, how do you take the test? And I'll share a story with the two of you that I haven't even shared with you yet, Erika. You were in town a couple of weeks ago in San Francisco, and we had you meet with a prominent family, and the patriarch of that family took the test, and he recently got his results. And I guess he's been running around the office bragging about how his results have been and just how excited he was to have the results. He took it very seriously. He's involved in pro sports. So can you talk to, for those that are on this webinar and those that will see it, how somebody goes about getting and obtaining the test and what that consists of?
Sure. I mean, I could also grab one if we want to see it while Wayne can talk.
Great.
And I can go run and get one.
That'd be great. Excellent.
I can do that. So, but what it is, a very simple pinprick blood test. So I'll grab it and I'll show you, but you poke your finger, you sort of squeeze your finger. There's a capillary tube that you collect the blood with, and you collect about 30 microliters of blood. Oh wow, it's like people hear me
Magic.
without my doing anything. It's like a magical thing. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Yeah, and you open it. This is what it looks like inside, and you get this little thing, and you open it up, and ultimately it sort of sits like a little rack. Let's see, and then so you have your little lancet.
Can we take a sample and show them?
Do you want us to actually poke ourselves?
I'll do it.
Wayne's not happy to bleed himself at any given time.
They call me Rat 43 in the laboratory. I think it's affectionate.
Well, I mean, speaking of that, how often should somebody retest themselves then? If the other Wayne, would you actually run it?
After you get the first test result, and if there are recommendations associated with it, we'd give them a month to take
about a month and a half. It's about a month and a half
to take effect, because we're not trying to do something acute. We want to move this web of interactions. You want to move that web of interactions in such a way that you don't break something. You don't fix a spider web that's jammed against a branch by pulling one strand.
It takes time. Ultimately, these things take time. It's not so simple as to do it all over, instantaneously. So if you're in the program, we send you a kit effectively every other month. It ends up being around every other month, and then the supplements for every month based on the results of that test. And so we have sort of a 6-month program. Everything is online. If you go to Ixcela.com under products, you can click, and you can either buy the test alone, or you can buy the program, which is the 6-month, which is what we really prefer, because that allows you to take a baseline, make modifications, retest. And so we test you 3 times over 6 months. And then at the end of 6 months, depending on how you feel and how you do, maybe there's a recommendation to do another 6 months. If you're in a pretty good spot, we say, okay, we'll be back maybe in a year, and we'll check you out again. So this is inside the box. You have this, which is the sort of the packet, and inside the packet, this is the collection device. So Wayne can stab himself, but there's, you poke your finger, and he's going to do it.
First, you take your finger, the one you want to use, wipe it off nicely with a piece of alcohol gauze.
Sure.
Get it nice and clean. Nice clean finger. Then you take this little fella here, scrub it a little bit. I usually hold it down there because I'm going to use it again.
Here, let's lower that.
All right.
This is good live TV here.
I know. Yeah. You go and you drop the lancet.
Drop the lancet.
That was okay.
All right.
Okay.
So you take the finger. I usually like, because that was the way we used to stick kids, to use the side of my finger, press it with the lancet, get a little drop of blood.
Here, you can't see it on the thing.
Get a little drop of blood. Like
Can you see your blood?
Yeah. Give me.
I can't see. You can't see it.
There you go.
Okay.
There it is. Little drop of blood.
Tiny.
And you take the little capillary and you go dip, 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 and it goes up in the little capillary. Now I didn't stick myself very hard because I'm having a cold hand day. That's enough.
All right. Collect.
All right. You got to collect at least. Now, if I was trying to do this in a hurry and I said that's enough, we can handle that. But we'd like to have it go all the way up to the top.
Or at least 3/4 of the way.
Yeah. So you just
keep going.
All right. So I've been out shoveling cold snow, so I'm having a slow day of it.
It's okay. The other thing you can do is use the gauze to wipe off
and then
wipe it off.
Wipe it off. That's enough to do an assay. Then I take this little fella here.
Hang on, I shouldn't have done that. Okay.
Take this little fella here.
Anyway, you can't see.
All right, you can see it.
No, you can't.
You can't.
There you go. Okay.
All right, take that little fella there. Put this little fellow in it. Put that on it. Watch it spread out all around the daisy.
Tilt it this way so people can see. Yeah.
And then when we get that back, we'll take a picture of it and we'll know how much I put on there to within about 0.5%. Then you close this up. Yeah. Wow. I haven't done this in a while. Close it up, put it in the bag and send it off.
Yep. So it basically, you've got like a closed, so it closes up. It looks like this. Yeah, and then you put it in the little mailer and you send it to us.
Excellent.
That's it.
I didn't stick myself hard enough to need a Band-Aid, but we do have Bugs Bunny Band-Aids if you want.
That's great. And then how would one obtain the test?
So right now you can buy it online. So you would just go to the website and click on products and you can make the purchase online.
Great. Excellent. Well, thanks for that demonstration, Wayne. That was more than we expected. So that was great.
Probably more than anybody wants to know.
Well, so let's get into some questions, just because of time coming up here. And again, if anyone else wants to ask some questions, there's a Q&A on the bottom. I see a few individuals who actually have my text. If they want to text me, they can text me a question. I'm happy to ask Erika and Wayne. And So the first question is actually anonymous, but they're asking if test results prove uneventful, i.e. all levels are normal, are there still some actionable items to be taken to optimize health? Along the same lines, assuming you are digging deeper behind the scenes than what's reported, is there an option to partner with a licensed medical professional to gain additional insight?
Sure. So yes, there's always, recommendations and things you can do to be better. We tend to, you know what, let me show this. This is just a copy of the report, but this is an example of the results page that you get. What it does is it ranks your score from 0 to 100. This is an average of 5 different systems health. So what we've done is we've mapped these metabolites that we measure to, they're relevant in gut health, but they're also relevant in other systems health. So whether it's brain health, energetic efficiency, immune system health. And so you get a score for each of these 5 categories of health. Little chart showing where you're at. This is just, I think this is a demo. This is just a mock-up. And then depending on how long you've been in the program, there's a tracker that shows you where you're at with regards to each of the 5 systems health. So if you're in the traditional OTC consumer program, this is the result. There's a much lengthier report. If anybody's interested, I can show that, but this is one of the pages in the report. If you do this through your physician, and that will be available shortly, you actually can get the metabolite concentrations of all of the things that we're measuring. That's a sort of an FDA regulation where if it's done through a doctor, we can share those levels with you. That being said, when your personalized nutrition and fitness plan is created, obviously we know internally what your metabolite levels are. So everything is customized. So it's not like there's just, 10 different choices and we kind of throw you in. There's actually hundreds of different choices. It's what's made programming really fun for the IT folks. They love me for this. But it's very, very much custom tailored to, your specific levels of each metabolite. If you do have levels that are above, we say sort of above 80, it's between 80 to 100. Like if you're in this kind of category, there are still other suggestions that we recommend. We give everybody in the program a probiotic, a generalized probiotic. There are still suggestions, but usually there's at least one category that's out of whack. But if not, then there are going to be some things that you can still do. Sorry.
Or some things that might still be recommended. That's pretty much the situation. The thing that would also be useful, you may have things that are generally in the normal range, but if, for instance, you want to begin to start a workout program to do something silly like run a Spartan race or a Tough Mudder, which I did last year, which was painful. It's a good idea to have some idea where you are before you start doing that. And that's one of the reasons I was really excited to have Craig and Scott join us from the Oracle group, because Craig in particular is a nationally known trainer, but he can design a training program, a fitness program for everybody from a couch potato to an elite athlete. And if you want to do that kind of thing, if you're contemplating doing that kind of thing, you would probably like to have a baseline to know what was happening, because a lot of the athletes we've looked at are in great shape, but pretty poor health.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I know that before I decided I wanted to go run around for 12 miles and jump over obstacles, that I took a sample beforehand and afterhand to see how much damage I'd done to my idiot self. So
Yeah,
those kinds of things. And as far as partnering with a physician, I think Erika covered that. If your physician requests the data, they can get the data. And they can also have the whole list of references and other people to talk to.
right. Excellent. So we've got a couple of questions here. Some are around the business and some are a little bit more clinical. I'm going to go to one that is a little still staying with clinical because I know you get asked this a lot. I've seen you get asked it, and it is, what is better? And this is, again, anonymous. Blood or poop?
Blood.
I can,
All right.
in terms of actionable, for most of the things we're looking for, like type 2 diabetes, problems with energetics and what have you, the blood is probably better. Where stool samples would be good is if you expect a parasitic infection. You know, let's say you've been traveling in the jungles of South America and you think you may have a tapeworm. We're not going to be able to tell you that. We could see that something was wrong, but we can't tell you that it's a tapeworm. We couldn't specify that. So if you suspect a parasitic infection, then a stool sample is a good idea. If you suspect C. difficile, and then it's also a useful thing, although you can also pick that up in a plasma sample. We don't do that. But so I think for general wellness, in the absence of an infection or in the absence of a parasitic infestation, that you're better off seeing how the microbiome is working to provide the nutrients that you need and the signaling and the processing molecules that you need to run the system. They're two different aspects, actually, of something that's useful.
Right.
It's easy to stick your finger. I wouldn't want to demonstrate the other.
No.
We're not gonna do this.
Yeah. So just going to more of the business, we have a question from Tom. Given the reduction in sick days and potential reduction of medical expenses as experienced by Team Oracle when you work with them, I would think that companies and insurance plans would be very interested. How much traction and interest have you seen from, one, corporate health plans, and two, insurance companies? Is a large volume subscription model appropriate for these type of customers?
Absolutely. So we're working on it. We're currently piloting the program at a couple of different companies here in Massachusetts from the corporate wellness perspective. So corporate wellness has there's different reasons that companies do this, whether it's to lessen their insurance premiums or to just show that they care about their employees. There's different motivations and every company is different. So unfortunately, you kind of have to go and pitch them individually and find out what they're trying to accomplish and then say, all right, we can tweak the story to make it work. So the answer is yes. We're just, like I said, we just sort of launched towards the end of last year. So we're working through all of that, but I've definitely gotten interest. Same with the insurance providers. So there's a bunch of meetings that are, on the book. So right now, really, there's sort of 4 areas that we're looking at. One is the traditional, OTC consumer, but really targeting sort of in the professional and pre-professional athletics, corporate wellness programs / insurance, and then, medical doctors, and that being another side. So we're looking at all these different areas, and then we're trying it to see what's going to actually, hook people. Our goal in the next 12 months is to get to 3,000 customers. That's like my magic internal number. So try a variety of different things and see what takes hold. But Tom is absolutely right. It's definitely an area that we're looking at.
Yeah, I think that's a significant part of your future for sure. I do want to get one last question in here just to make sure we answer everybody's. And I think you touched a little bit on this, Wayne, but what if I'm a super healthy person with no health concerns? What can I find out about my gut and potential future health by taking the test?
You could measure, that I know of right now, 2 risk factors that you might want to address. One is if you have low levels of indole-propionic acid or high levels of urate. You could also look at your tryptophan to kynurenine ratio, which is to some extent indicative of how you're handling amino acid metabolism. The low IPA would give you some idea of risk factors for developing type 2 diabetes. And I have a friend who was an Olympic athlete who developed type 2 diabetes who had low IPA, or hypertension. And it would be something you might want to change your diet to modify, or change your exercise profile to modify. Urate, you'd probably want to lower by changing diet and again, changing exercise profile. A couple of other things that would show up that are, you can be really healthy and really doing a great job of everything, but you can have some latent problems that can be addressed with very simple changes. And that would, I guess that's the answer to it.
Right. Great. I think that's important. It's for everybody. And I think you guys started, the conversation by saying everybody should be tested regardless because of some of these markers. So wonderful. We had some questions I can't get to, but I do want to thank Erika and Wayne for this wonderful hour. It's flown by. Thank you to everybody who dialed in. Someone actually asked, is this being recorded? The answer is yes. And how you found out about it, we will make sure we can communicate where to view it. We can have you go to Ixcela.com to learn more. Go to RedCrow.com and you can see Ixcela's excellent video where Wayne and Erika are talking. And I think at some point, Erika, we probably need to add more to that video because there has been some additions to the business model, especially with, after working with Team Oracle, which is really exciting. So appreciate your time, and we'll do this again soon. And thanks everybody for joining us today.
Appreciate your time too. Glad to